And we are live. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Dakota. I'm here with my guy, Richard the Vibes Vansiclen. Vibes, what's good, baby?
What's going on, Dakota? What's going on, everybody?
It's been a hot minute, man. I haven't seen you in a couple of months. I guess just to start off with, catch us up on what you've been up to, how you've been, what's new,
Yes,
what's
sir.
next, all the things.
Yeah, man. I just been getting my body and mind right. Coming off a close loss, it was a great fight. Rewatching the fight, I just, everybody that watched it, they're proud, and I'm proud of myself for the performance, and I just want to get back in there. So I just been getting my body right, trying to get, a little bit more strength in my body. So been hitting the gym really hard, and I've been bouncing around training camps. I've been getting some elite sparring. Just left camp with Munguia. Talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, just staying elite. Just trying to get my body right and my mind right for the next fight. Hopefully, sometime early spring. Yep.
Well, that's great news. Also, that's a kind of a surprise to know that you've been sparring with Munguia because I don't think you told me that. How's that been?
Yeah, man, it's been good. I sparred with him once before, in Big Bear. He was getting ready for Daniel Jacobs, but then they switched out the opponent. But yeah, I mean, it's been good. He's solid. He's looking real good. Good work for me, to get into, wild card. That's one of my favorite gyms, seeing Freddie Roach over the years. I started going there before I turned professional for, training for the Olympic trials. So I've been going there for years now. Just seeing that gym change and progress is really cool. And then just, getting that good work in that gym.
I've heard from numerous fighters that there's a specific thing. There's something about wild card sparring that's like a little bit different. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, there's the upstairs and there's the downstairs, and like I actually have an Instagram post where I was just like the downstairs work because it's just different, right? It's they close it off. They don't allow you to record. It's mano a mano. It's the big dogs. Some of the most legendary coaching and fighters go in there, and just to know that you've been walking and in the same ring as those guys, it does make the sparring there a different experience for sure.
I guess let's just get right into Munguia and Ryder. That's the big fight this weekend.
Yeah.
I think, especially on this channel, we've talked about in the past how confusing Munguia's progression has been because he was a champion at 154, very young, and then we haven't seen him in that many fights that are interesting or compelling in the last few years. And I always thought that was weird. Like when I would see him, it's like, yo, this guy's pretty good. I don't know what they're holding back for or whatever the case may be. Now we've seen him with Derevyanchenko. He's going to step in with John Ryder. Having been in the ring with him, what is your take on him as a fighter and maybe what some of his strengths are?
I say some of his strengths, definitely, he likes to body punch. He's a body puncher. He has that Mexican style, and that is his strength. That is bread and butter. He's definitely been one of those guys that, like you said, was a champion young. Kind of had an interesting progression in terms of his career. But you got hats off to the guy. Coming from Tijuana. If you've ever been to Tijuana, Mexico, there's not a lot there. So for him to be able to keep that record clean and get to the point of his career where he's at, that's hats off to him. And he's just a cool dude. Doesn't speak English very well, but he's getting better. But you could just tell that he genuinely cares about the people that help him get to where he's at. So he's a good dude for that.
Did you by any chance have any interaction with Eric Morales?
Yeah, does he still win his corner? Because I'm sorry, man. I'm not gonna be. I might sound dumb as hell right now, but I don't know, like if it's him still. Because I met him the first time. I know it was, his cornerman. The first time, I think he's still around. But I think Freddie Roach has kind of stepped up as the trainer for this next fight. But yeah, I have the first time I sparred him. But I'm not saying all Mexican dudes are the same because not all black people are the same. But I can't tell if it's him or not. I can't.
He also looks completely different from when he was fighting. He's right. He's like a big guy now.
Yeah, he's a bigger guy, and I think it's him, but I can't remember correctly if he's still around or not. But
having been a big guy your whole career, right? You've been 168, 175. He's a guy that started at welterweight and has kind of moved his way up. How do you see his size? Like, do you feel like he's a true super middleweight, or did you feel like I can notice the dip, like, because David's a guy that was 200 something pounds at one point. You could tell when somebody's big,
Yeah, no. In terms of like comparison to size, I would say he's not a true 168. and that is going to be something that they're going to find out if they didn't think about that ahead of time and get some more muscle on that body, because he's just not that big of a guy in terms of size. And me especially coming from my last fight, fighting at 75, and then I'm fighting a guy who, when I saw him outside of camp, is like 215, 220. I haven't ever seen those numbers ever. I've never walked down around really above 200 pounds. So, somebody like Munguia, I would say probably more realistically a 60-pounder. That's just more realistic. 68's a little heavy, I think, for him, and he's going to be undersized for sure.
I think that what may get him through like Canelo is going to be his talent. So Canelo is never going to be like a true 168, right? You can just see he's like a middleweight, a junior middleweight. That's just what his body's built for. But I think his talent level has carried him, up to being able to knock out Kovalev. I think this fight with Ryder is sort of the first time we're going to find out, like, how far can Munguia's talent level, his star power, how high up can that take him?
Yeah. So, one thing I definitely agree with that in terms of he's going to have to use skill. Skill is going to get him to this fight, because John Ryder is just a blue-nose, hard-working fighter who just comes forward and is a southpaw, right? So it's going to be his biggest test to date without a question, and it's not the biggest test to date for Ryder. So, Ryder does in that regard have the advantage in terms of experience.
Oh yeah, there's definitely an experience gap here. I mean, but there's more fights probably from Munguia. I think actually I was looking before, bro. He's 42-0 now, which is a pretty. He's starting to get into that conversation of like, is he going to hit the Floyd 50?
I mean, if he stays on the route that he's been with the talent level, yeah, easily could get you 50. But you got to take away like 20 of those fights that happened in Mexico, because you can't take anything for anybody, but it's just like realistically, like in terms of talent, skill level, like there would be a lot more guys that would have clean records going into the later parts of their career if they just fought guys that were you're supposed to beat. You know what I mean? It's the route of how you got to that 42-0 versus what it actually is, because the last few fights it's looked a little more even. Some people questionably thought he lost his last fight. So.
That was a fucking great fight too. Mm-hmm. Fuck. That was a good one.
What I will say about Munguia, though, I've noticed he's in his fights and and working with him, he has a really good tank. So I think that he will do well in the later rounds, and that's when he could actually potentially, if he is going to stop Ryder, it would be in the later rounds. I've heard him in the later rounds. He's really good at doing that, I feel like.
And I also think too, like Sergey Derevyanchenko, people underestimate his power. I know he's kind of lost when he stepped up, but he's always lost by like a fucking hair.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's a guy that does hit really hard, and I think that was a big jump up for Munguia. And I think going into the Ryder fight, I just think that experience, if he had just gone from what he was doing to Ryder, that's a big jump. But now that he's had that, that contender fight, I do think we're going to start seeing the best of him.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, like I said, he's a good dude, and I just want people that come from, where he's come from, like to proceed and excel. Because there's just so many haters in this sport, bro. It's just like you can't hate. Like it's just you could be winning. Everybody loves you when you're winning, right? You lose once, and then just people just turn their back on you. Look at Deontay Wilder. It's like this guy has the highest knockout percentage, regardless of anything. He started boxing at 21. He didn't really have that much time to learn how to box because he got jumped into the Olympics, right? So it's like, and then thrown into the pros because he's trying to make money. So it's like, and then he gets to that point and loses a few fights and people are just turning their back on him. It's like this, what he's done is impeccable. You know what I mean? So I kind of hate that about the sport and seeing that happen in recent times.
It's definitely, I think there's a lot of what have you done for me lately? That's definitely a thing. I will say with Deontay, that performance specifically, you can't take away what he's done in his career. He's probably the biggest puncher of all time. But I think it was surprising to see how reluctant he was to let his hands go. And I know Parker's an athletic, smart guy, but it was a weird performance. Nobody deserves hate or nothing like that, but I thought it was a weird fight on his part.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm sure he feels the same way because he's just like going from basically knocking everybody out to having a subpar performance. It's like you got to question whether it's really you have it in your tank anymore at this age, right? He's older too. Damage has been done to his body for sure after those Tyson Fury fights. A trilogy with Tyson Fury, who hits hella hard, but it isn't really thought of as a puncher. Dude hits hard too. He's big as shit.
Yeah, no, he is a puncher for sure. It's just a matter of when he uses it. You know what I mean? Like there's certain fights where, like the Klitschko fight, the first Wilder fight, where he was like, listen, you're not touching me this fight. So I'm going to be up on my toes. I'm not really sitting down on anything for real. And then you see in the second Deontay fight, he's walking forward, pushing him back. But all that's besides the point as well. I think on the flip side for Ryder, he's a guy who lost some fights early in his career, built himself back up with a winning streak, and got to that fight with Callum Smith. And I think most people feel like he won that fight. And then finally getting over the hump in the Danny Jacobs fight. Obviously losing to Canelo, there's no shame in that. But do you still see him as a guy that's like a legitimate threat to Munguia?
Hell yeah, dude. I honestly believe this is a 50-50 fight. And whoever shows up that night, tomorrow night, is going to be the winner. Like that, they have to show up because this is not some guy who's done, who's they're trying to put on. I'm sure Canelo wants him to win for sure because that's what he wants. You know what I mean? That's the path to avoiding people, and you can just take that fight. But Ryder isn't. He's not showing up to lose. That guy. But for me, like in terms of where his future comes after that, like who else is he really gonna fight? He'll be kind of that guy that he's a gatekeeper. But I mean, in terms of where his career's at, a big knockout win could put him really back into contention in terms of getting another title shot.
Well, look, I mean, if he knocked Munguia out, that puts him in the mix for just about any fight he wants, really.
Yeah, for sure.
Like it is a big opportunity for him to kind of just completely reroute the course of his career, which oddly enough he has done before.
You know I mean? And he's that Canelo fight. I mean, he's tough. He's just fought a guy who's a little bit better than him, and right-handed and had more experience. So and was expected to win. So he was underdog in that. But I feel like this, like I don't know what the odds are, but it should be 50-50. Like this, in my opinion, this is a legitimate 50-50 fight. Not favoring one side or the other because one person has things and the other person has things as well. So it legitimately is a 50-50 fight.
Have you ever sparred Ryder?
I've never sparred Ryder, but what's funny is who did Ryder fight before the Canelo? It was a tall English kid, I think.
He fought Danny Jacobs. He fought Callum Smith.
It was right. It was I forget the dude's name, but it was right before the Canelo fight. It's what got him the Canelo fight. It was a tall left-handed dude.
Oh, yep. I'm gonna look it up right now. I think it's Zach
Parker.
Zach Parker.
Parker. So it's funny because like in being a left-handed guy, right? Before I went to the Jake Paul training camp, they were hitting me up, or I was at Jake Paul's training camp. They were hitting me up to come to Europe to be in training camp with Zach Parker. And I don't know, man. If anybody's watching this, any training camp that I'm in, you end up winning your fight. So he fucked up. He ended up not pulling the trigger and not send me over to. I wanted to go to Europe, low key. That's all. That's really all I wanted. But he didn't end up sending me over there, and he fought John Ryder, and he got his ass beat. So, it's funny because then now this time, Munguia had me in his training camp, and he's fighting Ryder. And like I said, anybody who has me in their training camp undefeated.
There's some truth to that, bro. And when I think about the guys that you're sparring, bro, you really for real, you're sparring like the guys I would least like to spar in the world. You know what I mean? Like
fighters in the world, yeah, the best fighters in the world. And then it really gives you an idea of where you're at, what you can do. And so I'm really confident in my ability to box and to fight because there's so many elements to my game that I've still have yet to unleash. And I felt like my last fight, I was able to unleash, like, damn, what happens when you get hit and knocked down? Well, I'm going to get back up and I'm going to knock you the fuck down. So that was cool just for me because, for one, like, in all my sparring and all that stuff, I've never been knocked out. So you can't even really recreate that moment. You know what I mean? It's not something you can recreate. But now I know that I have that in me. So it's just, that's also really cool as a fighter to know where you're going and grasp that for yourself.
Yeah, and I mean, not for nothing, and we talked about this on the air before, but your last fight with Carrillo was like a for real classic. Like
Yeah.
that was a great fight. That was one of the best fights of the year. It was probably the best fight of the year where there wasn't a title on the line. It was.
Yeah, a small title, but it wasn't like a world title. Yeah.
Was there? I guess I assume because
it's a WBA intercontinental or whatever. But yeah, I still don't even understand the belts, man. I've been doing it. I swear to God, like whatever. It looks cool.
Well, in theory, it's supposed to get you a good ranking.
Yeah, right? It did. Yeah, and it did. He's ranked really high. But I've been hearing that honestly, he wants to retire now. I'm like, what? Whatever, man. Like he wants. I don't know. But I guess he's been boxing since he was a kid, and he had over 400 amateur fights and shit like that. So it's like, I can understand it. You know.
I think he's a little bit of an older guy, and also that was a really rough fight.
Hell yeah, you got knocked down, you got hurt, you know, and he lives in Colombia. He got some money, so now he's chilling, you know. So
one other thing, so I guess to wrap up Munguia versus Ryder, if you had how do you see this one playing out?
Bro, I tried to think about this, and I was like, I'll make it be a game time decision. I'm gonna do something that I normally never do, and I'm just gonna go off of who I want to win, and I want Munguia to win. I really do because you know he's a younger guy. He just has more of a future, but you know, but it's a 50-50 fight. Flip a coin, and that's who's gonna win this fight. Whoever shows up. It's gonna be one of those fights where legitimately, like it's interesting to watch. You know what I mean? There's not an A side and a B side. There's a side that makes more sense to win, just for what he has to gain. But again, like you said, Ryder has a lot to gain too if he has a dramatic win. So 50-50 fight, bro. But I want Munguia to win. I'll say that right now.
It's a real crossroads fight because for Munguia to get the Canelos and the Benavidez fights and whatever he would like to do moving forward, you have to win fights like this. You have to beat a guy like John Ryder. And for Ryder, he's trying to stay in the mix to keep getting fights with guys like Canelo and the other top guys. So I think it's two guys that, you know, have a lot on the line in this moment.
Hell yeah, it's gonna be a good ass fight, bro. I'm excited to watch it.
It is going to be a good fight. The other thing I wanted to ask you about because it just got announced. What do you think of Tim Tszyu versus Keith Thurman?
Bro, that's a great fight. That's a great fight. I think. When's the last time Keith Thurman has had a fight though?
Mario Barrios.
When was that? 2 years, 3 years ago?
I think it was 2 years. It was February of 22.
Oof. Yeah, that's gonna be rough for him, bro. Like I love Keith Thurman. I think he's a great fighter. I think he's done a lot of good things in his career. Had some big fights. Won some big fights.
Oh, we lost vibes for a minute.
Sorry about that. But he's not getting through Tszyu. Tszyu's gonna beat him. Like I don't know how else to say it. I think Tszyu wins that fight 8 times out of 10, just because of his productivity and his he's been active, right? He's been very active in the ring. He hasn't really taken any time off. He's been getting ready for bigger fights, really. But, you know, that one's going to be a fight where I think he just really shows up. And then maybe after that, he gets that Crawford fight if he wants it.
That's a great fucking fight. The thing that I don't like about this fight is that it's at 155. I don't understand what the point of that catch weight would be to go up 1 pound above the junior middleweight limit. Now there's no title on the line. It's just like it's a really odd way to make this fight. Outside of that, Keith, to me, is like one of the most exciting guys in boxing, and I'm a massive fan, and I've never understood why he fights like once every 3 years. I just don't. I don't get it. I'm wondering if he's still that interested in boxing, or if he's just, you know, essentially a part of a past era. And just
it could be that. It also could just be body, bro. Like as I get older, I'm like, nigga, now I understand why, you know, these guys have to take so much time off. Like last year, I had 2 10-rounders, and that's fucking it takes a toll on your body. It doesn't matter. It's not even the fights. It's like the training, the leading up, the preparing. Yeah. That shit takes a real big toll on your body. So that could be part of it as well. You know, he may not have been healthy, and he may not have been, let us on to believe that. You know, he might have been full of smoke saying he was, but probably wasn't. that's probably really what it was, or just life shit. You know, as you get older, your life becomes less and less about you. So could just be that too.
Well, and all of that may be true, and those would be really valid reasons. But he's 35 years old, and he's about to fight the best guy at the weight above him. And I respected the balls to take the fight, and he's never taken, been afraid to take good fights. But it's like, fuck, bro, that you couldn't have had like a little more activity leading up to this.
I mean, it could again just be life catches up. You realize your name is falling more and more relevant. You got one last paycheck, could be that. Could be he really believes in himself. But, at that age, it's just like you probably need the money. So, it's just interesting to see that. And I think, again, it's just he's in the prime of his career, and he's really living up to the name of Tszyu, right? So it's going to be a good fight. And I think, again, it ends by a knockout, with Tim Tszyu winning that fight 8 times out of 10.
And Tszyu, he a lot of times kind of reminds me of Golovkin in his style.
Yeah.
He's a really smart stalker. He got a nice jab, you know what I mean, when he wants to. His head movement's good. And I think that there's not going to be that many guys that can beat him at that weight. I think Keith is probably by far the most talented fighter he's been in with. Like when you think about the skill set that Keith has, he has more than he can go to than anybody that Tim's been in with. So I'm excited for that challenge for him.
I am too. I just really hope that Keith isn't, his age doesn't show, because this is a fucking young man sport. And so I just hope that his age doesn't show, and then we just get kind of a bust fight because you have a guy who's just, past the point of where he was. So I hope that doesn't happen. But I could see, like you said, if he does show up, it's a great fight. Still, there's a 2 out of 10 chance of winning, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that when he fought Barrios, I thought he looked good in that fight. He hadn't fought in almost 3 years, but he looked pretty fresh. Like, as much as you got to stay active, it's also like he hasn't been getting beat up this whole time.
True.
So, I don't know. Maybe he's been taking care of himself. Maybe he's been staying ready. And like you said, there's life things that happen, there's injuries that happen, but he's just been, staying the course. And who knows, man? I just think that with a guy like him, he's like got a little screw loose, bro. Like he really does believe that he's gonna beat anybody.
Right, he does.
You can hear it in his shit talk.
I'm glad he cut his hair though. God damn, that shit was ugly. You didn't like I respect you now, dog. That shit was moppy. It was disgusting looking.
You didn't like the Keith Thurman boxer braids?
No, I didn't. Like, honestly, for the longest time, I didn't know he was black. I was like, "You're black." I was like, "Wait, what? I thought you were Latino or something." I don't know.
Yeah,
no, he's a good ass fighter for sure.
He's incredible, bro. I love that matchup. I also really like Rolly Romero and Isaac Cruz.
Yeah, that's a good fight.
That's a fun fight. But, Rolly's not my favorite, but fuck, he puts on good fights. And Cruz is
fucking just talking shit talking. I mean, the other guy can't even speak English, but can Rolly even speak Spanish? I feel like he can't.
I don't know.
Like he can't. He's not even really Mexican. He's just one of those, what they call it, Latino or Chicanos. I don't know. That's gonna be a fun fight just because they're both able to knock each other, pretty hard. They hit really hard, so it's gonna be a good fight.
I think that one potentially. I don't know how long it's gonna last, but that has kind of like a fight of the year written on it.
Yeah, or just trading knockdowns and getting back up.
Yeah, or maybe Cruz separates himself and he's really like a top guy at 140, and I could see that. I think he's a hell of a fighter. What he did with Tank, nobody's really even come close to that. So to me, he's a guy that has like kind of yet to get his flowers.
Yeah, well, I mean, he got his flowers from that fight. He's been able to get some big fights, and I feel like Rolly has just been able to keep his career alive because he's just so entertaining. Like he's good, but he's not like, what I mean. He beat that dude that they call him the old man, the grandpa, but that grandpa like came back and knocked out that guy, bro. So that was he got lucky because that shit shouldn't have been stopped. That was a premature stoppage. That guy was actually hurt.
Barroso's a bad boy, bro.
Yeah, he is.
He actually is a tough motherfucker.
He really is.
And I've talked to guys who have sparred with him that say he hits his power is the real deal.
Yeah, and it looks like it is when in his fights.
And you know what? It was a weird way to find the belt, but Rolly found the belt up at 140. He found himself a ranking, and he challenged for the belt, and he beat that guy. Even if the stoppage was horrible, he's got a championship, so it's going to keep him relevant as long as he has it.
Exactly, and that's going to be a good fight versus Cruz.
Well, we got Jaime Munguia, John Ryder this coming Saturday. Vibes. Is there anything you want to plug? Anybody you want to shout out?
Oh man, I just want to say thank you, brother, for having me on the show again, and just keeping this relationship going. And I love coming on here and just shooting the shit with you and talking boxing. So thank you, Dakota. I appreciate you, brother.
Vibes. Always a pleasure catching up, bro. Good to see you.
Yes, sir. Vibes out.